They don't come at you with knives. They come at you with questions, with smiles, with just checking in, with "you should really think about this," and you think you're making your own decisions. But if you trace the roots of every yes you regret, every apology you didn't owe, every plan you dropped that wasn't yours to begin with, you'll find it. Pattern. You're not paranoid. You're waking up to the truth Nietzsche tried to shout in a world built to ignore it. Most people don't want you to be free. They want you to be manageable. And that doesn't require chains. Just suggestions. Small nudges. Emotional tricks wrapped in everyday language. This isn't a conspiracy. It's just how power works. Today, we break the spell. We're walking through 9 everyday manipulation tactics you've probably felt but never fully seen. The ones used in your friendships, your family, your job, even in your own thoughts. Not to make you bitter, but to make you aware. Because once you see the string, you don't dance to it. Let's begin. There's a tactic more dangerous than guilt, more corrosive than blame. It's the weapon of the wise manipulator. Confusion through kindness. Sounds like this: "I totally support you. I just think maybe you're rushing. I'm happy for you. But are you sure you're making the right choice?" It's not what they say, it's the tone. Concern. Soft doubt. Wrapped in loyalty. You lower your guard because they sound like they care. But they don't want clarity. They want hesitation. Because your uncertainty is their advantage. Nietzsche said it plainly: distrust all in whom the impulse to punish is powerful. And sometimes punishment isn't loud. It's passive. It's psychological. It's disguised as love. This isn't love. It's emotional erosion. So how do you see it? You ask yourself one question: does their support energize me or drain me? Because real support builds. Manipulation, even when it's quiet, always subtracts. It starts with praise. "You're so mature. You're always the strong one. You're not like other people. You don't need help." Sounds good. But feel the weight behind those words. They're not admiring you. They're assigning you a role. This is the compliment cage. A manipulation tactic that hides behind flattery, but locks you inside an expectation you never agreed to. You're the reliable one, so they lean on you. You're the stable one, so they offload their chaos. You're the strong friend, so when you struggle, no one checks in. Because you're not allowed to fall apart. Not anymore. You've been typecast as invincible. And here's the cruel part. When you finally break down, they don't comfort you. They blame you. Where did the strong you go? Why are you acting like this? Stop being so dramatic. That's when you realize the praise wasn't for you. It was for them, to justify what they take from you. Nietzsche warned, "He who cannot command himself must obey." And this is how they get you to obey. By making you command yourself. By convincing you that being tired, angry, or needing help would make you weak, selfish, unworthy. So how do you escape? You shatter the compliment cage. By refusing to perform for their comfort. Let them be confused. Let them be uncomfortable. Let them adjust. You are not their image of you. You're not the role they wrote for you. You're allowed to be complex. And your strength means nothing if you're never allowed to rest. Manipulators love when you stay polished. Because as long as you're performing, you're not protecting. So stop smiling for them. Stop carrying what they dropped on your back. And next time someone calls you strong, ask yourself, is this admiration or expectation in disguise? It sounds like accountability, but it isn't. It starts with a sigh, a sad face, a slow voice. "Look, I'm sorry you felt that way. I guess I just didn't realize it hurt you." And then, the pivot. "Things have just been so hard for me lately. I've been dealing with a lot. You know I'm trying my best." This is the distraction apology. A tactic that mimics remorse, but redirects the spotlight. It's not about owning what they did. It's about shifting the narrative from your pain to their problems. And suddenly, you're not confronting them anymore. You're comforting them. Again, Nietzsche said, "People don't want to hear the truth because they don't want their illusions destroyed." And this is what the manipulator does best. They protect their self-image, even if it costs your peace. Because true apology, the simple, I was wrong, I hurt you,
I'm sorry. No detours. No biography.
no victim act. But manipulators aren't sorry. They're just sorry they got caught. And instead of cleaning up the mess, they cry in it until you forget what the mess was in the first place. So how do you respond? You don't explain. You don't console. You don't carry their guilt for them. You say, I'm not here to comfort you for what you did to me. And then you pause. Let the silence do what their story never will. Force them to face themselves. Manipulation isn't always control. Sometimes it's clever escape. They know the words, but they don't mean the repair. So don't be fooled by the tears. Watch the change. And if there is none, walk. Because emotional maturity is not how soft they speak. It's how deep they take responsibility. There's a certain pressure you can't quite explain. It's not a demand. It's a suggestion wrapped in urgency. They say things like, opportunities like this don't come twice. People like me don't wait forever. If you don't decide now, I'll have to move on. And suddenly, you're not making a decision. You're trying not to lose something. This is the scarcity setup. A classic manipulation move, where someone manufactures urgency to bypass your clarity. They push you to commit, but only on their timeline. They force your hand by creating artificial stakes. But real connection, real trust, real opportunities don't expire under pressure. They expand with patience. Nietzsche would call this the illusion of necessity. He believed that when people can't offer real value, they manufacture tension to appear more important than they are. So they pretend your future hinges on them, that your worth depends on their approval, that your delay is disrespect. And that's the trap. You start choosing from fear, not from truth. So how do you break it? By refusing to sprint through doors that only open under threat. If someone won't give you time, give yourself distance. Because manipulation can't survive in spaciousness. It needs you frantic. It needs you scrambling. It needs you scared to lose what might not even be real. Here's the truth. If a connection needs to be forced, it was never safe to begin with. If someone needs to rush you, it's not love, it's leverage. So next time someone says, you'll regret not taking this chance, you say, if it's real, it'll wait. Then walk, calmly, because anything that can be stolen from you under pressure wasn't yours. It was a setup. They remember everything they did for you, every ride they gave, every favor they offered, every time they showed up. But your efforts, your sacrifices, your time, your care, your listening, vanished from the ledger, forgotten. This is emotional accounting, a manipulation tactic where someone tracks their kindness, like debt you now owe, but conveniently forgets their withdrawals. They say, after everything I've done for you, I dropped everything for you and this is how you treat me? But you know the truth. You've done just as much, if not more. You just never wrote it down, because you weren't keeping score. But they were. Nietzsche warned us of this long before we had words for it. He said, the man of resentment is always calculating. This kind of person doesn't give freely. They give to own. They give to control. They give so they can later say, I deserve more. And here's where it gets cruel. They don't want to balance the scale. They want to tip it. They want you grateful, guilty, and permanently in their emotional debt. So how do you reclaim your peace? You refuse the game. You say, I didn't know we were keeping track. I wasn't. Then stop explaining. Because love without freedom is just obligation. And support that becomes leverage was never support to begin with. They want you small, indebted, afraid to ask for anything, because they'll throw your past right back at you. So stop apologizing for what you didn't know. You don't need to overcompensate to be safe in someone's presence. You don't need to repay what you never borrowed. Let them keep their scorecard. You keep your dignity, because once you stop trying to earn your worth, they lose their grip. You meet the mark, then they move it. You show up, Then they say it wasn't enough. You finally speak your truth, and they say your tone was the problem. This is the shifting standard. A psychological trap where approval is always almost yours, but never quite. And the more you chase it, the more you shrink. They don't tell you what's really wrong. They just tell you it's not quite right. They keep you guessing, adjusting, fixing yourself for an ideal they've never defined. Why? Because if they gave you clarity, you'd stop needing their feedback. If they set a real boundary, you might meet it and gain power. Nietzsche called this kind of pattern will to power through confusion. It's domination without force. A control system where your desire to be accepted is used against you. They dangle acceptance, like a carrot on a stick, always out of reach, but close enough to make you run. And if you ever stop and ask, "Wait, what do you actually want from me?" they'll say, "I just want you to be yourself." But every version of you so far hasn't been quite right. That's not feedback. That's control. So how do you break it? You stop performing. You stop trying to earn what should be given freely. And most importantly, you stop seeking consistency from someone who profits off your confusion. You say, "If you can't name the standard, I'm done trying to meet it." Then leave it there. Manipulators fear fixed definitions, because once the rules are clear, you can win or walk away. And the second you stop dancing for unclear approval, you start moving in clarity, in power, in peace. Feels like connection. They open up. They cry. They tell you secrets no one else knows. And you think, this is trust. This is real. But then it turns. Their pain becomes your burden. Their trauma becomes your task. Their story becomes your silence. This is controlled vulnerability. Not the kind that builds trust, but the kind that demands loyalty. They bleed just enough to make you drop your guard. They confess just enough to make you feel responsible. But look closer. It's never mutual. It's never free. Because what follows isn't closeness. It's guilt. Nietzsche warned us, "He who despises himself still respects himself as one who despises." And many manipulators, they use their wounds as weapons. They hate themselves just enough to make you love them harder, so they don't have to. So how do you know the difference between honesty and manipulation? Look at the timing. Is the vulnerability slow, reciprocal, natural? Or is it fast, intense, and followed by pressure? Ask yourself, do I feel connected or cornered? Because not every sob story is a doorway. Some are traps. So when someone dumps their trauma on you, then expects your silence, your time, your sacrifice, stop. You are not an emotional landfill. You can care without carrying. You can listen without losing yourself. Real vulnerability invites. Manipulative vulnerability invades. And if someone only opens up as a way to close you in, that's not intimacy. That's strategy. They never seem to have it together. There's always a crisis, a meltdown, a fire only you can put out. They call you during your busiest hour. They show up unannounced. They need help now. And at first, it feels like purpose, like trust, like you're the anchor in someone else's storm. But over time, you realize something. The storm never passes. This is manufactured chaos, a manipulation tactic where instability is weaponized to keep you emotionally trapped. Because if they're always broken, you can't ever walk away without guilt. And the moment you try, they escalate. They fall apart harder, louder, more convincingly. Nietzsche wrote, "Insanity in individuals is rare, but in groups, parties, nations, and epochs, it is the rule." And here, the insanity is private, but it pulls you in like gravity. They don't want solutions. They want dependency. They want your energy, your time, your emotional oxygen. Because without it, they'd have to face their own chaos. And here's how you know it's not real healing. They never change. They never take your advice. They just reset the crisis until you come back. So how do you get out? You stop being the emergency contact. For someone who refuses to grow, you say,
Icare.
"But I won't carry this." And when they spiral harder, you hold your boundary firmer, because every time you rescue them, you teach them to stay drowning. And your compassion should not be a leash they tie around your neck. Help those who help themselves. The rest, let the storm pass, without dragging you under. Start small. A comment wrapped in care. You sure you can handle that? Don't get your hopes up. I just don't want to see you disappointed. It doesn't sound cruel. Sounds thoughtful. But it lingers. This is the doubt seed. A subtle, almost invisible manipulation. Not meant to stop you directly, just slow you down, make you second-guess yourself, until you willingly shrink. They don't need to control your choices. They just plant the right hesitation. And soon, you're no longer dreaming freely. You're filtering your goals through their fear. Nietzsche warned, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." But what if someone poisons your why? Not with insults, with concern. Because this tactic isn't about making you fail. It's about making you afraid to even try. They cloak it as realism, but it's just their own limitations, projected onto your future. Here's how to spot it. Every time you feel inspired, do they lean in with encouragement, or lean back with warnings? Every time you start to rise, do they anchor you down with doubt? Here's how to fight it. You separate their voice from your inner truth. When doubt creeps in, ask, "Do I believe this? Or was I taught to doubt myself?" And then move anyway, because self-trust is built in defiance of subtle sabotage. You don't need loud critics to fail. You only need one quiet voice. You let live in your head. Don't let them rent space in your mind. Don't let their fear dress up as your wisdom. Uproot the doubt and grow. By now, you've seen the tactics: guilt hooks, shifting mirrors, emotional accounting, doubt seeds, and more. But there's one last thread that ties them all together. Control disguised as connection. You think you're building closeness. They're building control. You think you're choosing freely. They're just giving you options that all lead back to them. This is the puppet string, the invisible force that makes you hesitate before saying no, explain yourself when you don't need to, and shrink in moments you should rise. Not because you're weak, but because you were trained to associate your power with rejection. Nietzsche said, "He who cannot put his thoughts on ice should not enter into the heat of argument." And manipulators never argue head-on. They keep things warm, soft, familiar, so you never notice the strings. But now you do. You've started to see the patterns, the rewrites, the delays, the roles they cast you in, without permission. And that's the first cut. Because awareness is liberation. Silence is power. Clarity is resistance. Boundaries, they're not just walls. They're declarations. You don't owe loyalty to confusion. You don't owe patience to manipulation. You don't owe pieces of yourself to anyone who only sees your worth when you're small. So if something inside you stirred during these 10 truths, don't ignore it. That was your soul, reaching for the scissors. Cut the strings. Walk upright, and never apologize for refusing to be played.